Okay, so on the host machine, I'm gonna hit forward. It's only sending it on the host and it's not on the client. Why is it not broadcasting on the client? So if you've been following along, I've been building out a Godot 3D multiplayer template, and I've been focusing on using state machines for the different states that a player may end up in, like idle or moving, running, and that sort of thing. And I was able to get that working with a basic character and a little demo world using Netfox so that we have some lag compensation. However, if you run the demo game right now, there seems to be a dropped state transition. When Netfox detects that there's been like a transition, it's not being sent or synchronized to the other clients. So what you'll see is a character stuck in the walking animation or the walking state on another client where it should just be like idle or whatever the respective state that it was supposed to transition to. Somebody has created a pull request to enhance Netfox and actually added a specific function under the label of multiplayer state machine. What they're doing is they're demonstrating a new node, rewindable state machine. What I want to do today is see if we can use their rewindable state machine and see if it actually fixes the problems that we're noticing. And I'm really excited to see if it'll work, because then anybody can come along and grab this template and really hit the ground running with their multiplayer game. If you're interested in following along, go to Netfox, and under the main repository, there's an examples folder, and then specifically this multiplayer state machine. So right here, underneath the multiplayer state machine, these are the relevant scripts, this chunk right here, in scenes that I'm going to be looking at today to try to get it to work in our project, the 3D multiplayer template project. This is the existing 3D template project, and we've already got Netfox in there. I'm not 100% sure exactly what I have to do to enable the new state machine node, but I'm going to look into that today. So under the Netfox documentation, if you scroll down, there's this Netfox extra section, and that's where we're going to find this rewindable state machine here. We're currently on 4.3. I think we're up 4.4 right now. I'm going to take my time getting there. So if 4.3 doesn't have any issues, I'm definitely going to commit those changes. But before, we were on 4.2. So just keep that in mind if you're following along. All right, so just to review what I did, I cloned the full Netfox repository, and this is just off the main branch right now. So it's like the most recent. Then I went under add-ons after I cloned it, and I just dragged over these extras, internals, and then Netfox proper folder into my add-ons. Just dragged them in there, and I'm just going to make sure that they are enabled. Just going to kind of give them a tick just to see if it'll work. And I want to run this. 3 is good enough for this test. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm getting an issue. So because I upgraded, I think this script is conflicting with the one it should be using. What I'm going to have to do is probably just re-add it, the rollback synchronizer. Oh, that got recognized. So that corrected itself. So maybe I can do the same thing here. So let's do quick load, and I think it's tick interpolator. So that is Netfox's. So let's change that. And okay, so it is recognizing it at this point. So maybe it'll work now. Okay, so this top one, I'm going to do host just to give you guys an idea of where we're at. So I'm trying to add a player, and the tick interpolator doesn't like it. Oh, I need to assign a root to player. And that's player, that should be player. Yeah, so the root is going to be the player object so that it knows where in relation these properties are going to be. So if we click on the player, that's the player script right here. And we are tracking, these properties and these properties respectively, which are based out of this character body 3D, this player script. Okay, if we go back into the host window, which is in the top, let's join as a client. So it looks like it's working and with 2 people. Like you can see the other guys, the top screen is just in idle mode, and my player in the bottom window is walking, and it looks like all the animations are starting and stopping correctly. You can see he can jump and turn, no problems. The issue comes up when you have like that third person join as a client, and you can see he's just like hovering in a jump animation. That could be caused by a couple different things, but when I was doing all this investigation before, it really felt like it was just missing a transition from between the states. And I believe this was some underlying issue that just Netfox has in its way of handling those states. So as you can see, he's kind of stuck there, and it'll actually like work itself out probably. Like he might actually snap out of that at some point, but it doesn't look like it's working right now. Yeah, let me see if I can get yeah, so you can see he's not walking on the client on the right. He's just like sitting in idle, but he's walking on the other two screens. So there could be more than one issue here, but I know that there was an issue with the transition states being dropped between like an idle and walk or walk and idle. And I want to see if this new state machine will fix that. So that's where we're at. That's the current point. Other than that, it does work pretty well. So we've upgraded. We're at Godot 4.3. I had to reset or realign the scripts properly with the actual nodes, the Netfox nodes I'm using over here. So we had those sorted out. And what I want to do now is look at the documentation and try to upgrade or refactor this 3D template to work with the new state machine. I don't even know where to start. So let's just see, maybe the documentation will have something. Here, what are they talking about? So we need to use a rewindable state machine in step, or as like a sibling, I think they're calling it, alongside the rollback synchronizer. And then you can see right here, they are referencing the rewindable state machine state. So we're gonna have to add this and then directly capture that state. So that's kind of a little caveat that you can't forget to get this to work. Yeah, here, add it as a sibling and have its state property configured. So I guess we can start there. So let's head over to the player and we'll add a rollback. No, it was a rewindable. There we go. Rewindable. Let's see. Rewindable. So that's showing up, and I think we want a rewindable state machine. I think everything is under the player script. Yeah. So what we want to do is add a rewindable state machine. So let's hit create. Let's add that to our player object. And what that's going to do is replace this. So I have a state machine script in here, which is something that I built based off the Shaggy Devs state machine, and I just kind of made it work for multiplayer. And you can go watch the previous streams on YouTube to see how that all worked out. But I'm guessing that I'm going to have to abandon this in favor of the rewindable state machine. So they've taken an opinionated approach on how to do that, on how to implement the state machine, and they've kind of encapsulated it within this Netfox object here. So I believe that's what I have to do. So if we look back at the example, they're not doing anything with it. I don't see any, the code itself is in here. If you want to look through that, if you want to just review what's going on there, and we may have to if there's any issues that come up. And what they've done is for each state now, so I just have nodes, and it's just a node that I made, right? And if we look at the individual states themselves, underneath the player folder for our project, fall, idle, jump, and move are the 4 states that I'm working with right now. And those are, let me just open up one of them. So if we open it up, it's just state that it extends, which I just made a state scene. So I have this state script, which is this, and this is a ton of custom code that we wrote. And I think I'm going to have to use their state, the Netfox state, instead, which I believe, so they're calling it rewindable state. Interesting. So yeah, I'm going to have to abandon all the code that I wrote, like all this stuff, in favor of their stuff. And I'm not so sure how that's going to work out, because I've got some custom stuff in here that I'm going to have to pull out and refactor as part of this, because like I have movement code in there. So I guess what I could do is I can create like another state object that I override their state object, and then maybe tack on some of this stuff. But I don't know yet. I'm going to do one thing at a time. Again, like I said, I haven't done this yet, so we're just really trying to figure it out as we go. But I do want to check into what they're actually doing. So they have 2 functions, enter and tick, that that we've actually kind of similarly implemented. So we have our enter, and I think we have a tick function somewhere, not here. Then it's in the state machine itself, and it should process. Yeah, I think instead of tick, we were using this process physics call, and we may have to upgrade for that. I think what I want to do is abandon my states. So almost start from scratch. So I have this states list here of scenes, and I'm thinking we don't use those now. And we just basically ignore everything under this in favor of the new stuff. Okay, so it's complaining that I need to add that state synchronizer property here. Okay, so I think what we will do is just do yeah, it says you may need to reload the scene. So yeah, I'll probably have to reload the scene at some point. So let's just add a new state just to get started. And I have rewindable state here. Let's just do that. And let's change it to idle. And I'm going to leave it called idle state because I don't want there to be conflicts with this idle down here. So their idle state, they have two properties, character and input. I guess that could work. Let me just look at our idle for a second. Yeah, so I'm not really doing anything at all here. And the get movement input is just from the superclass of the state that I created. So instead of doing that, I can, it's move component. Yeah, so get movement input just returns input direction. And movement input, move component is just, I think, our input scripts. We got a state machine here. So here's our state machine. And here is where we are initting it currently, the current version that we made or I made. And instead of passing this there, I think we can create a property to pass this player input, which is just this object right here. Yeah, so we can just follow along with what they're doing and try to copy that for now. You have a few methods that are exposed here, like tick and enter, exit, and can enter. And this can enter. It's actually pretty important for the underlying code. I was reading through the pull request, and there had been some back and forth about the can enter, and it ended up being fairly important to the process of this. And if you ever want to dig into like what's happening, like what the inner workings on something, just check out the closed pull requests. This user had gone through and championed this whole thing, and there's a whole discussion behind it. And they went, and Element Bound, which is the maintainer of Netfox, had gone back and forth with him and created this PR here. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. But anyways, let me see what they are saying here. So yeah, if you had custom behaviors for any of these four things, you can of course override them as shown here. Okay, and they're just calling out that transition, you can reference them in this method, and it will transition to the move state, as you can see here. Okay. All right, so we are definitely gonna have to do a little bit of refactoring, a little bit more than I had anticipated. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm excited to do it. So let's just dive in. And I think what I want to do is just start with one state. Let's just get one state working. So if you look at their idle state, they've got something called rewindable state. So this is where our existing states are. You know, I'm thinking about just adding it right next to it and just naming it like idle state. I hate to just blow these away right now because I like the reference. I'm going to need to see them. So I'm going to go with that, and then we may have to refactor back the naming convention. Okay, so these are actual scenes that I have. I don't know if we're going to do it that way. I can just close that for now. So for now, let's just go under scripts. Yeah, so here's our current list of states. I'm going to start naming the new ones. Let's say idle. Let's do underscore state for now. And then we can change it back if we need to later. We need a rewindable state. So we're currently grabbing the input. We're not doing anything with it, and we're just rotating the player. So somehow I need to link the rotate player script with this state somehow, which is in my state. So it's basically this. So in idle, I'm not going to really let you do anything except for move. I want to do this with composition. So it's almost like I need like another object called like rotator object or something. I just want to test that this works, and then we can refactor back out any kind of the weird changes that we might make to this. So this is going to look a little rough for a minute. So let me see if I can pull out and just paste this code in here for now. We'll just add a to-do there, and we'll remove these. And, oh, right, I'm gonna need access to the camera. I can't just do this. Yeah, so they both get access to the camera and the input. So I'm gonna have to do something similar to that. I'm gonna need the player model. So camera input. So let's do this. Let's grab the camera input. We can remove that and remove that for now. I think I'll need these three things. I would like to put these in a common class. So again, I may be overriding this some point. And then we need a rotation speed. Where is that? Yeah, here, let's just grab that for now. And in theory, we should be able to do that. If we can, let's select our state, select idle state, open, camera input is this one. And then our player model is this one. And then the animation name is whatever this is. All right, so we go and look, we have a rewindable state. It is underneath the new rewindable state machine. I have a single state, and we have a single method that we need. But then what else do we need? We need this enter, which is where we'll start the animations. So I'll probably need access to the animation player. And then we have a tick here, which I don't really need to do any of that right now. But let's just go ahead and override those things. So enter, we're going to say start animation. And then tick is, I guess, this. Because that's what we did in my old idle. That's all we did right there. So this state machine, I need to play the animation. So that would be under state, enter. Yeah, so I just have this thing here. Just want to go through the motions of everything once, which also means I need an animation player reference. So let's grab that animation player. And again, I'm going to refactor all this again because this is just me trying to get it working, trying to get used to it. Do I even have that? I don't. Okay, so I knit the state machine with it. So the state machine has it, but I don't have that because I don't have state machine like that anymore. I think maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let's just hold off on the animation stuff for a second because I just need to make sure that we actually are switching states. So we have an idle state kinda, and we're gonna have to refactor this stuff, like the set current state and where this animation stuff is being used. So this is okay to hear. I'm gonna have to change the current state stuff that I'm doing. I almost wish I could just start over. It's always a pain to refactor. So I have that. On state change, new state name, current state label. So they have, okay, so all this is doing is changing it looks like they exposed a signal for on state changed for their state machine. But I don't really care to update a label right now, so I don't need to do this, but I do need to do that. So in my player script, we need a reference to the new state machine. So we need to get off this reliance on this one. I don't want to use my state machine anymore. So that's going to cause a big ripple effect of errors. So let's add the one that they are using, which is just a rewindable state machine object. And I'm just going to use their naming convention a little bit. And let's see what that did. So that's going to open up a new thing in theory, but because I have bugs or because there's errors now, it doesn't like it. All right, let me leave it on for now so I can make the changes. I mean, leave it uncommented for now. And then it should yeah, okay. So I have this state machine here. Let's drag the new one over, and then we'll be removing this one later. And great. So let's see how we init this. Let's check the docs really quick. You know, it's pretty straightforward. I don't really see anything in the docs. So, you know, I'm not really gonna fuss with it. And then if you look at their example I downloaded earlier, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. All right, so in their player script, they are setting the current state machine. Okay, so let's follow along with that and see. I set the current state right here. What's that do? So set current state. We're gonna have to ignore this now. We're gonna have to refactor probably any kind of reliance on these get states, because now we're gonna use theirs. Unless I need to, you know, encapsulate that with something, because I need to do it differently. But for now, instead of setting the current state, let's move away from that. And let's use their way. I think I'm using underscore to signal it's a class level private variable that people shouldn't be accessing. And then we do state, which is embedded, and then we'll set it to idle, but it's not idle. I believe this is the name of the actual node. So I think mine's called idle state, and it auto completed. So that makes me feel better. Okay. And then if we go back to, I'm not doing this on state. I don't need to change the name. So that's fine. So then what am I doing? So my init down here is, that's going to have to go away, because we're going to have to pass in the player inputs in the animation player. And now that I'm like, the more that I'm talking about this, the more I'm thinking that I may need to wrap their state machine with my own custom script so that I can, you know, get stuff that I had made custom in my states. I said state machine, I meant state. But let me just see. Animation player, so that's going to need to get fixed right here. This is also going to need to get fixed. Yeah, this is kind of why I'm thinking, like, because I need to, it would be easy. It'd be really easy just to pass the state machine. Hey, here's the animation player. Anytime, you know, you need to use it, there it is. But maybe there's a better way where we don't have that tight coupling. And I'm going to have to think about how to do that later on. But I know that this is going to have to go away here. And I'm going to leave the animation player there for now. And our rollback tick is, they're not doing anything. They're just, this force, this force update is just a workaround to make sure that this is on floor, check is done correctly. You can read about that in the docs, and I've talked about that in previous videos. So what that means is none of this stuff I'm going to need anymore. I don't need a determine state. Yeah, the only thing I need to do is probably just run this process physics, which is just a function that I made up based on that old state machine. So originally my code was kind of like this, where I had all the transition code in the tick per state. So like, here's idle, here's jump, here's move. They have all their transition logic in the actual code. I had it like that before, but I moved away from that to combat some issue that I ran into on a previous stream in favor of determining the state at the player level. And that's what all this stuff was. That's why I have all this workarounds in here to try to fix the issue. But it looks like they've been able to encapsulate those issues in their state machine. So I don't think I need to do any of this stuff anymore, which is kind of nice. But what I need to pay attention to is what this was doing here was calling the physics process in the current state, right? So this is my state machine. This is my old state machine. And all it would do is get the current state and run the process physics on the current state, which looked like this, or whatever it is for move. It's like, it just handles the move, but it doesn't handle the transition. So because we don't need to do that anymore, I don't think I need any of this stuff. Yeah. So, okay. So let's just do this. Let's pretend that we don't need any of that. And let's go back to whatever their rollback tick looks like, which should be the same as mine. Delta tick is fresh. Delta tick is fresh. They've explicitly called out the parameter type. And I like that. So maybe I'll just copy that for now. And let's just create another one. Whoop. and we'll just ignore this one. Just call it old and just not use it. What? Okay, and then this is odd. They just have like a default. They have a default setting. So here's the tick. I'm not able to wrap my brain around why this is here. Like the rollback tick is the stuff that you want to be rollback aware. If you need to reconcile something that the player is doing, you would put it in here. For some reason, they're only looking at that velocity as part of that, which I guess is okay. I'm going to trust them for a minute blindly and just copy what they have. I don't really like doing that. So that means this is going to be ignored. This determined state, I don't think is called anywhere else in the project. Yeah. And I think the same can be get current state is probably called somewhere else because I didn't put an underscore. Yeah. I'm going to leave all this stuff because it's my state machine code, which I'm just not going to use anymore. So I can probably comment it all out, but I'm going to just ignore it for now. Oh, it is named it correctly. Okay. So this was like old code. Okay. So our ready comes in. We've got a way to set our current state to the rewindable state machine. And then we haven't changed anything here. We just left process settings because that's what we need to do. And then our rollback tick will start. Rollback synchronizer should be aware that I have a element here, another element in the list to be rollback aware, which is the state inside our rewindable state machine, which is here. Internally, there's a state, and right now we just have idle. There's not a whole lot more I can do other than starting to add another state. I just want to double check. I have the text different sizes. Like one click too big. Okay. So I want to just make sure that this state machine, the old one, is not going to be hit anymore. I don't think it is. All right. I guess what I want to do is just see if it compiles, see if I didn't break something. And he should just be an idle. Like there shouldn't be anything. Yeah, it shouldn't be moving. He should just be sitting there in idle. And that looks like what's happening. Just join the client. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of what I expected. I don't have any movement code right now, so he's just standing still. Okay, so nothing broke. Let's transition to another state. So how are they doing that? So in our idle, let's add a little conditional here. I almost want to ignore that for a minute and just focus on this part. And let's go from like an idle to a move state. And so that's in our idle state. And so I'm allowing them to rotate, and that didn't actually work. Now that I just realized, hold on. Yeah, it's not turning on either screen. It's not rotating the player at all, which it should based on the inputs. Oh, well, maybe you can't. I think my name is wrong. Okay, hold on. Where was it? Yeah, here. I think it's this name right here and not the name of the script. Yes. Okay. Got it. So you can see now I'm turning, and if you look down in the output down here, there's no warnings about changing to an unknown state anymore. So we can already turn our player and have it synchronized. Okay. And it's synchronizing between the two different instances. And then let's just start up the third instance. Baby steps here just to make sure that everybody's syncing. Yeah. Okay. So he is synchronizing across the clients. Great. The takeaway here is the name that you transition to in this fashion, the way that they, indicating that we can switch states to or assign states. This like pointer method or whatever reference method is, it's referencing the name in the tree and not the script. So just, FYI. Okay. So we've got our first idle state working. Good. So this is kind of working. Let's create a move state. So let's add another rewindable state, and let's call it move state. And let's create a script for that. I'll move _ state for now. And then we can open that up, and we don't need this stuff. Okay, so our move is going to be a little different. But what we need to do is, did I copy? Yeah, I did. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to track the input here in our states. So in our idle state, we need to have another field here for input, right? And I think I've already got a reference to that we can copy over called move component. Yeah, I don't know why I don't know. Let's just go back to their naming convention, which is this input, and we can work from that for now. And underneath idle state, you can export input, and I believe it's player input is the type. I kind of like to match that, and then we'll just say player input. I don't think it's called movement. What is their version of movement? Is it like a 2D vector 3D? So they're using a vector 3D. I don't know if I'm using a vector 3D. Let's just see. Okay, so player input dot not movement. It's just let's go there and see what we got. So I think it's just input direction. So if input direction is not 0, then hey, we need the transition. Now, I don't know if we get this state machine by default. We do. Great. So that's part of the rewindable state superclass. And then if we want to transition, we just transition to move state. So if we have an input, player's moving, hey, we need to kick them over to the move state. And let's go to the idle state in the tree, drag over our player input. Great. I don't know why this is complaining, because it's not a vector 3, it's vector 2. So I think we can transition between idle and move now. And let's look at our move state. We are a rewindable state now. And if we look at the old move state, we were grabbing the input, which we kind of already have, and we were moving the player, rotating the player, and moving the player. And our move input looks like this. So I'm going to copy all that. Move state, and we're going to do that. Move state needs a reference to, just organize this a little bit better in my tree here. So for now, I'm going to copy everything, I think. I need everything. And then we can like refactor down to a slimmer implementation later on. Oh, this is like me trying to do the run. Let's not fuss with the run stuff just yet. And then parent is just the player, reference to the player velocity, which we will need. And we'll just go ahead and name it the same. And I think I was doing character body 3D. Let's look at the state. What did I call it? Parent. Yeah, so it's just player. Okay, so we'll just name it player. And let's pretend we're not going to deal with run for now. One thing at a time. And input direction is player input. So we don't really need that. So this is kind of going to replace this. So we don't need that. And this is just my version of moving that I've kind of developed over time. And we need to add in our enter function, which I guess is where we're going to put our animations. And I'm going to leave that to do animations. And then we'll just comment that out. And then of course we need the tick function. Yeah, we're doing that. And then we just need to grab that. So let's just going to grab all of it for now. And we can say move player instead, pass in delta. And we don't need to pass in the movement input or anything. The speed thing could come in handy again. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as a reference during the refactor phase, player input. And then we're going to go to move state. This is a 2. Nope. And then we don't have a jump yet. So let's get rid of jump. Need to add a semicolon or colon. Direction and speed. We need a speed. What was I doing? I was doing walk speed. Okay, so why was I doing that? this was like if you wanted to move the player at a higher speed, it would default to that. Otherwise, it would change to run. But was I passing in speed somewhere? How was I doing that? Jump, move, speed. Oh, because I had moved it to. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense doing it that way when I have it separated. For now, this is a walk. Let's just do that. Walk speed, which I don't even have in here. I think it's over here. Yeah. Move state. Put it right there. Clean that up for a second. Got rid of that. Okay. So direction, we're using our camera input, which did we wire it up yet? No, because we still have errors. What is it complaining about? Speed. So I'm going to just do this for now. Walk speed. And then we're just going to leave that to speed. And then if we need to do anything with run, like this stuff, we can do that. For now, I don't want to get too much in the weeds with that. So now we click on move. Still don't have it. What's wrong? We have all this stuff. Why don't we have this stuff? Because the script is wrong. So we're going to quick load a move underscore. There we go. There it is. All right. And then I'm going to steal the animation name while we have it. Move it under there. And camera input, player model, player input, and player. Hate how you can't do that with the player object. That's okay. Great. All right, so we got our move state. The tick function is going to call our move functionality. Our direction is based on camera and the player input, which I think we've got working fine. We've got a speed based on direction. Position target based on the direction vector times speed. Capturing horizontal velocity down here. It's probably something I can refactor, clean it up a little bit. I don't know. We don't really need that. I did this for some reason and maybe it got, whatever. I'm just going to leave it for now. And so if we have a horizontal velocity, we apply it. Otherwise, we just kind of move them towards, I guess, 0 at the speed. So like if they're not pushing any inputs, we just like move them at whatever that existing speed is to 0. And then, of course, our move and slide, which is basically what they're doing here. So put this there. We'll leave it there because we have our move code there. Move. And then if the input direction is, I would say 0, then we move back to idle and not whatever I just did there. Right? Yeah. So that's exactly what I just did. Perfect. All right. So all this is going to do now is if we move, we'll move, I think. We'll go from idle to move. And then if we stop moving, like if we stop pushing on the keyboard, then it'll take us back to idle. That's with this line of code here. Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to work. Just double check everything. Yeah, so we're not using any of that anymore. Got our move state. I hate how they rearrange stuff that I have. Like I like these. I want this window to stay how I organize it, and it never does. And I haven't really found an option that will stop that. That's this. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know a way to lock these in place. Let me know. Okay, so if we move, all these are wired up. We should be able to move. So there's not going to be any animations. He's probably going to be stuck in that weird jump position that we saw, but I should be able to move, and I'm not able to move. So we don't have a player input. Looks like our player input is null. Player input here. Input dir. Did I do input dir over here? Player input. No, I just did player input. So I think we can just go back to what I had before, and then here we'll just say input dir equals player input dot input dir, right? Because that's what's inside this player input here. Yeah, input dir. Okay. Okay. He's moving. He's moving in the direction that my camera is pointing, which is absolutely correct. Awesome. So we can move and we can go back to idle, move, idle, move, idle. Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's try to see if we can do that from another client. So this is synchronizing. So this is their state machine. He's not spinning correctly because I didn't add the rotation code to the move state yet, but everything is synchronizing with their state machine. But I mean, we haven't gotten to the core of the problem yet with the animations through the transitions of the states, but everything looks to be syncing so far. So I think we're okay there. And like a second ago, I just said we don't have the rotation in the move state, and I want to verify that that's true. Yeah, I don't see it in here. So if we go back to my original move script, you can see I call a rotate player model, and I also do that here, which let's just also add it here. As you can see, this is some duplication in the code, and I may move this to a more common place eventually. Okay, do I have player model? I do. And what else did I need? Camera input, got it. And okay, so let's just try it again and see if it actually rotates the player. It should rotate the player. That's really cool. Okay, so you can see that the player is correctly rotated now based on the direction I'm heading. No, it's not. It's not rotating the player. Does it at the end? Yeah, he's moving, but he's not rotating with it. So, oh, I didn't call it. Okay, so move, rotate first. Let's just do rotate first, which calls to here. Just calls down there. All right, cool. So now when the player turns, you should see it. Actually, I'm sorry, when I turn the camera, you should see the player rotate towards it, and it is doing that perfectly. So I'm just holding W forward, and if I just rotate the mouse, he's moving. If I hold D and A respectively, he's moving that way. Yeah, this is working exactly as I expected. So let's go back down here. And what happened to my camera? All right, so I'm in the host window at the top, and let's go back to the client window at the bottom, and you can see his rotation is synced perfectly. One more sanity check on the third client, because that's where we usually see those issues pop out with synchronization, and it's syncing perfectly. Great. So we got our movement, we got our idle, we got our rotation. We got duplicated code here. That's okay in the two states. I'm probably not going to do jump today. So let's try to tackle animations for a minute. And if those work properly, then I think we might be golden. So I think what I want to do here is we're going to have to pass in the animation player from the player itself. So let me see if I can figure out a way to do that quickly. Because right now I don't really have that. I have access to the parent. I guess I can grab it out of the parent like I'm doing underneath the core player object. Like, you know, you can see I'm getting it from the player model, which is my animation is in the player model. Okay, do I have the player model? Do have the player model. So let's just do that for now. And then if we need to refactor that, let me see if that causes an error. I don't think it should. Okay, so if we go back to idle, and I guess we're gonna have a ready. Oops, let's do ready, and we're gonna just grab the animation player like I had up the top there, and we'll just set it that way. We'll add this to each I guess state. Unless I figure out a way to make it common to the states, we're just going to do it there for now. And you guys are just going to have to like it. Okay, so animation player exists. So now what we can do is add the animation player variable. Okay. All right, so I just added animation player to both. And I'm initializing the animation player in the ready function. And then down here, let's start our animation. I believe animation name should be correct. Let me see, idle state. Yeah, I got it there and I got it there. Okay, so let's just undo that check. And I think we can just copy paste it under the, let's do that. So in theory, when the state loads, this enter gets called, right? So if we check back in our documentation, you want to know where I'm getting all this information, enter is called when entering the state. So if you enter a idle state, you should kick off the idle animation. You enter a walk state, kick off your walk animation, and so on and so forth. respective to whatever animation. So I'm just doing a check here to make sure we have an animation name, we have an animation player before we actually try to play it. I kind of think this should work. So when we load the game, the player should start in idle, and you should just see him just kind of sitting there. And that's not the case. So he's just stuck in jump. I don't really know why he's stuck in jump. So it doesn't like, because I spelt it wrong. There's no state machine here because I don't have a reference to it. How is it not recognizing the state machine? It's built into the state. Like, this is built in. How would it not have it? That's what? I mean, I have access to it. I know it's there. It's like the state machine doesn't exist for some reason in my idle. Let me check something. Let's say else bad stuff. And then maybe that'll give me an idea that something's not currently. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's working out. But there are debuggers saying that the transition call doesn't exist in the idle state. So something in this breaks it. Oh, you know what it is? I need to call super. I need to call it super ready. I think I need to do that. Interesting. So it looks like I was kind of right. Okay. So it didn't puke this time. So let's go up here and let's just test if we can animate. Did I undo it? So yeah, let's try it here. Maybe they don't want you to use the ready function. I'm a little suspect of that. Okay. Let's put back our test for the animations and let's see if that actually fixed it. He's not. Okay. So now he's in idle. And now he's walking, and now he's idle, and now he's walking, and now he's idle, and now he's walking. You know, I'm not sure top of my head how I want to handle this, because clearly, you know, you got to remember to, if you're using a built-in node function, there's probably some, setup. If we go to rewindables, if we look into rewindable state and we look at ready, yeah, there's clearly some very important setup done here, guys. So yeah, don't forget to call your super class. I'm thinking that I'm going to create another class that encapsulates all the common functionality, like this rotate and move functionality, and maybe just call it like motion state, or I don't know, maybe I'll name it after, my like bad rewind state, and it just encapsulates all that common functionality. And then I won't have to do this in every state. I won't have to do this in every state, and I won't have to like put all this stuff in every state. We'll just have that like one common parent. Anyways, that could be an improvement. So let's see if we have any fixes here. So he's walking, I can stop, he's idle, walking, stop, it's idle. Check the other guy. I hate it when it does that. Okay. Walking. So the animation's not being synchronized right now. On the host is weird. That sounds like a problem. Like I broke something. Let's try down here. So this is like the moment of truth, really. Like, is this guy? Yeah, so he's still animating. I have a feeling that I need to synchronize animation. I thought I was synchronizing. Maybe not. Maybe I have this set up wrong. So we're almost back to where I left off, and it still has a little bit of problem. Let me check. When we switch states, animation player, this enter should be called on all clients. Yeah, bad stuff isn't printed out, so we're good. We're not, we're not missing anything. So this enter should be called on every state change. I think regardless of client, I think. So in that case, in theory, I would assume that each instance of this player object would have its animation correctly selected, right? So for each node, so there's your host representation of it. Yeah, I mean, each time it should be called. Each time it should be called. I think we have to synchronize animation. I think that might be the big problem here. I think we may need to synchronize animation because when I entered the game, this guy on the right is the host, right? He's player number 1, and this is player number 2, respectively. Okay, so player number 1, person joins the game, and this client joins the game. He isn't going to run through this enter to change his state anymore because he's already in a state. We may not see him. That logic for entering may not actually happen on this client, right? Until he moves. So if I go back to the host and if I move him, function should be hit and that animation should be playing on that client, and it's not, which doesn't really make sense to me. So let me just see if this is getting called, where this is getting called. I want to know which player it is and which client it's on. Yeah, I for this, I'm going to need a reference player. So we're going to have to just do this for now. I'm probably going to need to do that anyways eventually. But so let's add this up here for now. And we'll go over to idle and then we'll select parent just so we can print out the name for now. And I believe we can just say name. What? Parent, not player. There we go. So this will give us enter the state on where they entered it per client. So I just won one. So player 1 entered a state. Okay. So oh, this is on idle. Hold on. So we're going to say enter IDLE, enter idle. Let's say idle entered. And then let's just make another one in here. We'll say move entered. Move entered. It's like a new word. All right. So then move entered, idle entered. So move is entered. We are in move and I release and he's in idle. Okay. Let's connect another client. All right. I'm on this client. I'm on the client 1, not on the host. And I hit forward, move entered on, it's actually working here. Okay. So on both clients, on the host and on this client, which is referenced by the 139, he entered the move state and you can see he's walking. Okay, so on the host machine, I'm going to hit forward. It's only sending it on the host and it's not on the client. Why is it not broadcasting on the client? That is a really good question. Okay, so then if we go to the other instance, it's like having the same problem as before. This is really interesting. Well, guys, it's kind of disappointing because I thought for sure that this was going to fix the problem. I think I'm going to just wrap up for now because I want to talk to those guys about this and maybe, even give them that project and see if there's something else to be identified here. Thanks for coming by today. Please follow me on Twitch and YouTube, sub on YouTube. If you're interested in, multiplayer stuff with Godot, we're running into some issues with Netfox. And once those get wrapped up, I'll probably do like another, video on it and I'll keep streaming this issue too. So keep an eye out. So anyways, thanks for stopping by today. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.